On over here. Final step. Good morning. With the help of Hashem, we are learning today's 3 Prakim Rambam. Hilchos Mechira, Prakim Yud Gimel, Yud Dalid, and Tezvav. First chapter today, Perek Shloisha Asad, is going to continue to tell us regarding this law of Oina'ah that we started yesterday, of not cheating someone in business transactions by overcharging or not being cheated by undercharging. And we're going to learn various scenarios where we do apply Oina'ah and other scenarios where we don't have this restriction or we don't apply at all the laws of Oina'ah. Perek Shloisha Asad has 18 halachas, beginning with halacha Aleph, says that Rambam. Hamachlif kelim b'kelim. When a person exchanges one article for the other. In other words, they're doing the first type of chalipin that we learned about in that chapter of the Rambam, shava b'shava, one article for the other, barter. Or utensil for utensil, or behema b'behema, animal for an animal. And the Rambam wants to emphasize that we don't need for both of these articles to have the same objective value. It can even be a needle for a shiryon. It could be for a coat of armor. Both metal, one is worth $1, one in the market is worth 100. Or a teleh besus. A little animal, a little lamb is worth a smaller amount of money. A horse is worth a lot more. We don't say that the party that got the article that's worth less was cheated in any exchange barter. There's no rules of Oina'ah. Why? Because the one that wants the needle might need the machat more than the other person needs their coat of armor. In other words, we adhere to the concept that it's subjective. If I want it, then for me it has that value. So there was no cheating. There's an exception that if produce, any type of produce, is being exchanged, whether they were evaluated prior to this exchange, whether they were evaluated after the exchange, there we have the law of Oina'ah. It's very interesting. In other words, the Nakuda is that God forbade Oina'ah by mechira, by sale. By chalipin, God did not forbid Oina'ah, which is why the Rambam is saying we're not applying it. However, since the laws of chalipin were written by Kalim, that's the source of this kinyan of chalipin. That's why the Rambam paskins that by Kalim there's never going to be Oina'ah. And truth be told, when the Rambam writes that by produce there is Oina'ah, that's only if they were evaluated. That means that Rambam is implying that if produce was never evaluated, means I had a pound of flour, you have a pound of apples, whatever it is. And I say, oh, I need your apples, you need my flour. If no one ever evaluated the money, you can also make that exchange. But once you evaluate paytas, then we view the paytas as mechira. And by kalim and by animals, even if they are evaluated, we still consider it a king and chalipin. And by chalipin, there's no Oina'ah. And let's leave it at that. Allah base. Another type of transaction. A person is going to purchase an item with coins, but where they're not measuring the number, the volume, the weight of the coins. Meaning, a person takes a handful of coins without counting them. And he says, sell me a cow for this. Now, when we learned the Perek of Chalipin, by giving a askara, and the Rambam just paskin that if we viewed the transaction as Chalipin, there is no law of Oina'ah. Nevertheless, here there is Oina'ah, and therefore, umachzir Oina'ah k'ma. You have to give the money back to the party that lost. Whether the askara is with the coin or whether the askara is with the produce. You have a pile of produce. I have seen this in Brazil at my father's business. At the end of a season, people come and they say, I want everything off the shelf. It means they buy a lot. They don't know exactly how much they're buying. There is a din of oina. Shekano machzir oina. Notes, when don't we say oina? When it's a keli bekeli. The moment coins are involved, even though you're not counting the coins, it already has a din of a mech. Now, another big rule. When a person is selling his personal belongings, it's not a business. Because I have a couch, I want to sell my couch. Look at it. There's no dinim of overcharged or undercharged. That's the concept. The concept is that people that buy stuff that are personal, they're going to be overpaying. It's different. They're not going into a store. People know from the outset that the numbers here, this is not a normal business. And once a person knows, as we'll see in a moment, exactly what the situation is, there won't be the din of oina. And that will be the next halachi gimel. If a person makes a business transaction and they say, in other words, I want for this transaction to be completed on condition that no one will be held responsible for this unfair gain. That's a very generic statement. It's too general. You're not specifying how much money was over or undercharged, and that statement is not effective. As we learned in the previous chapter, right? Yeah, under a 6, Michael, a 6, you have to return the money. Over a 6, the losing party who wants can make a bittul mekach. Because that it's not effective, the statement bistam, but it's a general statement. In other words, he doesn't know exactly how much is being overcharged. This statement, of course, is ineffective. I'm making a sale. Let's complete this transaction on the condition on the condition that there is no oina. Well, that's factually false. If there is an overcharge, there is oina. So that's why that statement is not effective. What are we getting to? If a person is mefarish, if a person explicitly mentions the amount of gain, the person is honest. You see this? I bought this for 200. I'm selling it for 400. If you let the buyer know how much you're earning, then there is no din of oina. Because when it comes to money, people can forgive. The only exception where we say that by money people cannot forgive is interest. People can also ask by interest. I know how much I'm paying interest, and I'm moichel. We don't say it by interest. Other than that, you're moichel. Any stipulation when it comes to money matters will stand. So if you didn't specify how much money you're gaining, you're just saying, let's make a transaction on the condition that you won't have any oina, tightness on me. That's not good enough. But the moment you specify the number of the charge, how much did I pay? How much am I selling it for? Now there's going to be some details, whoever has a business. Because when I say that this costed me 100, what does that include? If I have a store, Yaron, it's not just that I bought it from the wholesaler for 100. What about transportation? What about the store? We're going to see what am I allowed to add in the principal value and what may I not include. But as long as my numbers were honest, halachically, and you know that you're paying not a 6 more, you're paying 600 more. You knew that? You knew the number? No, you know. Halacha daled. And guys, this is so important though for the next chapter to chop what we're saying over here.
But Rabbi.
Yes.
At what point does the cost adjust based on the market rate versus what you paid? I mean, if I paid 100, but now the market price is 150, do I still have to go by what I paid, or can I look at
no? So very good, Danny. The Rambam's actually going to write about it in a moment. In other words, I guess if I'm not using halacha gimel, what is the current market value? And I have to be within the 6th. The moment I'm going a 6th or more, the way to circumvent oina is by telling the customer how much I paid for it, which will include some fixed expenses, not all, some. And this is how much I'm charging. Don't you love these words? I know many people that felt that way. When they sell, they're doing you a favor. I'm giving you. He's telling him, truth be told, I know that it's only worth a money. but I'm selling it for 200. That means I'm going beyond the 60. But but I'm selling it as long as you won't come with a claim that I unfairly overcharged or cheated you. I'm not cheating you. This is what it is. You don't have to buy it. Then then the guy who bought it, it's a done deal. No money has to be correct. If the purchaser tells the seller, I'm paying you 100. And he can say, and I know that it's worth 200. I know that. I can only give you 100. Don't come later and say that I cheated you. Which as long as you specify the real number of the discrepancy, then the other party was meichel. If it's a vague statement, then there's no mechila because you can't be meichel something that you don't know. Right? Your wife comes to you with a complaint. Honey, I apologize. It's not effective. You have to first know what the complaint is. You can only you can't just vaguely.
This is very effective, my friend.
It's very effective. They're saying over here. Just apologize right away. I don't even know for what.
Every day.
I don't know. Honey, good morning. I'm sorry. No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't mean anything. Halacha hey. Now another din, guys. See, atkan is that you're telling the details. You're telling the details of it's 200. I'm charging 400. Hanoisei denoisen be'emuna, which means when a person is buying and selling in a faithful manner, it's even more than an halacha. Halacha Gimel is saying how much it's worth. See, I'm sorry, halacha Gimel, you're not saying how much you paid for it. You're saying this item in the market is worth 100. I'm selling it for 200. That's also good. Here, we're not speaking about him mentioning market value. Here, he's mentioning how much he paid. That's it. I'm being honest. I'm telling you all of the steps. I paid X, so that amount of money. And I will be earning that amount of profit. Here also, when a person is trying to be honest in this specific item, how much they paid for, how much they're selling it for. So you have to understand that's really Danny's question. If I'm not saying that this in the market is worth 200. I'm saying how much I paid it for. Sometimes you buy wholesale, you pay less. Sometimes you paid more. So if you bought a lot of things together in one lot, so how do you calculate the value of each one? If you want to be honest, if you bought everything together in one lot, you have to take the number that you paid and divide it equally amongst all the items. Even though it means that for some items you paid maybe a little bit more than you should have, for some items a little bit less. You don't cheshbon it according to each one. Don't calculate and sell the inferior items in a faithful manner because you probably paid a little bit more than you should have for the inferior. You paid a little bit more, then it sounds like you're making less profit. You understand? And sell the other profits in their real value, even though you paid a little bit less for them. Don't present it in a way where it sounds like you're earning less. Either be'emuna means I paid for this lot $1,000. There are 10 items divided by 100. That's how much I paid for it. Or, like we learned in Halacha Dalet, just tell the buyer in the market, this is worth X amount of money in the retail market, but I'm charging you more. Either way is good. Now, if I'm going into be'emuna means how much did I pay for it? When I want to cheshbon how much I paid for something, the number isn't only what I bought it for, because I have some carrying expenses. Carrying expenses is part of my baseline price. I can include in what I paid for it the porter's fee, schara chamor, or the donkey drive, in other words, transportation, and the schara pundik. Schara pundik means that if I needed to go buy something, guys, and on the way back, I needed to lodge in a Motel 6 or in a Chveis Nishvas, the fancy hotels, that's how much I paid. That's included in the price of the item. What is not included in the price of the item? Your own time. But if you're an entrepreneur, the only thing you cannot cheshbon in is that if I would have been a worker, then working for 3 days, I would have earned $200. That is not, no. You're making money by being a business. You're not a worker. It's all of the fixed expenses other than you is allowed to be reckoned. Because that's the way you're making a living. You're not getting paid as a worker. You're telling the person, I'm making a living because I'm earning off each item 800%. But the baseline is what you paid for it, and fixed expenses. Very good. And I'm saying the Shulchan Aruch, it says part of the fixed expenses is your rent. The Rambam didn't mention it because he was speaking about traveling salespeople. Today you have a store, that's a big expense. And and if you have workers, all of that, no, it's fixed expenses, the rent, electricity, your workers, the transportation. The only thing that you cannot include in your expense is you. Good. Now that we learned these exceptions, now let's speak about people which are excluded from the din of Oino. Halacha Zayin. Hagoy Eloy Oino.
Rabbi.
Yes.
You can include yourself, but what if you have an employee that's like a salesperson?
Just mention in Shulchan Aruch it says that you do include.
Got it.
It's all fixed expenses. All of the money, the Shulchan Aruch says that you have to pay to upkeep your store. Upkeep your store to me is rent, electricity, the cleaning, workers, all of the expenses for you. The only one you cannot put yourself that I'm getting a salary. What about me? No, you're the owner. You're making profit. You're making a living from that difference of price. Okay. That's the Parshas Bahar. The goy shehoines Yisrael. So if he took advantage of a yid whenever they are under our jurisdiction, then machzir oino kedinim shalom. That money has to be corrected. Why lo yiyaz chamor mi Yisrael? No, if a yid overcharged the yid, then the losing party can demand payment. So the same has to be with the goy, even though the goy really is excluded from this loss. Now halacha has another big cloud. Elu devarim she'elam oino. There are 4 items that are also excluded from oino, which is karkois land. But you don't have to be nice and them when it's ironic that when it comes to land, I know here, the people that know, you can discover how much the guy paid for the land. Everything is public. So you can know how much profit is being made, but it's not needed halachically. So it's by land, you can buy it for any amount and sell it for any amount. And avadim, we know halachically, servants are halachically like land. Documents have no eino, and anything that's connected to hegdish. Even if the discrepancy is huge, 1,000 to 1, something that's worth 1 was sold for 1,000. That's a good business, right? Because it says in Parshas Bahar, when you will purchase an entity from the hand of your colleague, purchasing from your hand implies something that's movable. So that expression excludes lands. And automatically, right, the pasuk uses the words achuza by avodim. Achuza is normally on real estate, so hukshul karkois. The yotza karkois, and the yotza shtaray she'ein gufen kanoi elorai shobahem. And amisecha comes from your colleague, meaning and not from hegdish. Halacha night, I meant that these 4 are excluded. Those 4 are excluded. If someone was acting as your proxy, then he made a mistake even in the most minute amount, not only by the taltal, even by karka. There, the din is chayzer. The mishaleach, if he wants, guys, underline the one, if he wants, can be mevatel the sale. Because he can tell the buyer, I didn't sell it to you, I sent a proxy. The proxy had no right to sell it for $1 less. You ruined it for me, shliach. I didn't send you to do a bad deal. I sent you to do a good deal. Now, that just like if a sale is done through a shliach, you can always, the party can always be mavatal the mekach. The same thing is with an apetrupis who's representing minor orphans, not only by metaltalin, because it's like, there was a cheat involved, even if it was accidental. Even by land are excluded, but not by the shliach. Now, what is this? Not similar to the Einodem Beis Din, As we'll see soon, guys, concerning a Beis Din, that if someone was appointed by a Beis Din to make a transaction, that we don't say you made the most minute mistake. No, because he's representing a Beis Din. The apitrupas is an individual, and therefore we don't tolerate, or there is the option for the orphans not to tolerate even the most minute undercharge, even though it's karka. Halacha Yud. Now let's look about Beis Din. Beis Din shemachnu michsi yisayim, even if they're selling michsi yisayim and they made a mistake. We don't say what we said above. What do we say? The mistake was less than a 6, as we learned in Pedicute Beis. Then that discrepancy is waived. Here's the difference. Now, what did we learn by a commoner? That by a hedyet, bishtus, the mekach is not bottled. The 6 has to be given back. Here, bottle on mekach. However, but yes, and we know machzirin. Lo yia koyach hedyet chamor mehem. In other words, Beis Din always has the option to act if it's beneficial for the Beis Din. Beis Din has an option to say, "What by between had yoytzes, you're not mevatel the mekach." So we don't want to be mevatel the mekach. It's a power that's given to Beis. If Beis Din wants, they can be mevatel the mekach. Halacha Yudal. You know, Alicia, Beis Din shemachar karka. If something that was worth a mana and they sold it into 200, in other words, and what did we say, guys, in halacha ches, that karka and avodim from a commoner is excluded from the din of Eino, also because here also you understand? Gewaldig. If the orphans themselves, Yakir would have sold it. People that sell karka or avodim, the buyer lost. He paid double. There's no way not. So what? Just because it's done through a Beis Din, it can't be more. It has to be better for the Beis Din, better for the Yisayim. That if what? That if the loikeach, you see, before in halacha test was the apitrupis made a mistake to the detriment of the Yisayim. What happens if they made a mistake or not a mistake? They overcharged the purchaser to the betterment of the orphans. Again, by a hedyet, no matter how much you overcharged for real estate, it's not called halachically overcharging. It's a concept. It's land. When you say I paid $1 million here in LA for a closet, you didn't overpay. That's how they convinced us. Pay the right value. We'll see how far they can push this. Halacha Yud Beis. And this is great. How do you view a partnership dismantleship? You're taking apart a partnership and you are evaluating each one should get a fair share if they were 50-50, 64, doesn't matter how, and you're making a cheshbon. And we began this chapter by saying that when you make a barter, there's no way no, unless it's paid as with shuma, but other kalim, behemoths. So here, harehem kelakuchais, there is oino. Pachas mishtos, nikna mechach, right? Yes, and al-shtos, if they want, the losing party has the choice to be mevatel the mekach. If it's a shtos, kano machzorayna, the unfair gain has to be returned to him. His name. If they made an agreement that they are going to give over to the judges will be the ones to establish exactly how to make this division. Now, what happens? What did we learn in Halacha Yud, guys? That if Beis Din gets involved, even by a shtus, you can make a bittul on Mecca. You got it? Here also, batla chaluka. Shahadayanim shom shtus. So you see the shtus. That's what we learned in Halacha Yud. There, it's not like shtus should be returned. If the dayan, and many times it happens when you have a business and you make a separation, that the Beis Din will get involved. Doesn't even mean that the Beis Din themselves. The Beis Din sometimes here they're going to hire experts. Yeah, people don't know how to evaluate a business. That's a big challenge when people have the partners and they want to make a separation. How do you evaluate it? You bring in a third party that is an expert, that is objective, and there's certain formulas that people have, and more or less you come to an understanding. These are articles that are each one is different. An animal pearls, swords, and a Sefer Torah. It's amazing how they're put together in the same breath. In other words, by the way, that's a big machlokes. It's a big machlokes in Tanoim. The Rambam is passing that way. The Rambam is insisting. Which is an halacha ches, which is, guys, karka, avodim, shtarois, and we just said karka, avodim, shtarois. No. Hegdish, koyach. See, Hegdish. Chulin cup. I forgot the Hegdish. All right, we got at least it's good to know where we are. That's where I am. All right. Now it's halacha tes. That's an halacha tes. That's important, right? Because we learned that let's say a shliach who makes a mistake, even by karka, the kol shehu, he sells it under. You can revoke it. Halacha yudal. Shem she'ein like a kois choyna. Kach schirus karka ein lo yino. Rentals, come to LA, guys. They'll show you, but there's no way no. They'll charge you for a closet $8,000 a month with a half a bathroom down the hall. Both ways. You're renting a palace in Ohio and you're paying a dinar a year, or a refes ktana, a little coop. That's a good deal to rent out your chicken coops, right? To pay a dinar every day. Because rental is considered karka. It's about land. Halacha tezva. Now let's speak about hiring workers, whether they're working with land or whether they're working with taltalin. Here also, when it comes to paying workers, why is it oino? What happens if someone says, "Come on, a day labor, whatever the law is, whatever the common thing is, you pay $20 an hour or whatever they're not, and you paid me 10." Cheated me. There's no way. No. Why? Because it's like buying a servant for a day. People say we're against slavery. That's exactly what everyone is. We're working. You're a slave. But it's an agreement. You conceded that I'm going to give this amount of time to do that type of work for you for this amount of money. That's exactly what Abdus is. You're laughing. We're all avodim. The Eibusher says, "Be my avodim." If we're a better avodim of God, then God somehow allows us just to be His. Beautiful. God has a little bit of a jealousy, which is good for our benefit. If we just choose not to be God's Eved, okay, say that, then we become an Eved Lavadim. Bisman shu kokaino islam and vavodim ein lo yoino. Halacha tezayin schori l'israel karka. If you hire a worker, now here's the kasha. If you hire a worker, it's like a contractor. I want you to seed land. Now listen to what happened. Now, seeding land means that this guy has to put a certain amount of seeds, not to put less seeds than needed. What happens if there is a machlokes whether he seeded it enough or not? Is this a machlokes about seeds? It means maybe you overpaid because you got less seeds, or is it about seeing the land? Anything which is about karka, there's no way not. The worker says that I put an abundant amount of seeds. It's not that you bought the seeds and you're paying the worker. He's doing that job. He says, I put in what I needed to put in. And witnesses testified, he put in less than normal, than the normal amount, which means that he cheated you. Whether he did it so willingly or not willingly, he spent less. Now, is this oina'a about land or is it about seeds? Yes, because zera's metaltalin, or ein because it's about, you didn't buy the seeds, you paid him for the job of sowing land, and it's about, was the land sowed with enough seeds?
Yeah, and, but you would imagine that what's the seeds for? This is for the final product. Who cares? But the land. There's
a suffix. The Chazal had a suffix. Yakir has no suffix, but the Chacham had a suffix. No, I see a suffix. I see the suffix. So number one, that's the Rambam's general rule. Whoever's being demanded, pay back that guy. You can't get it. And also, if there's going to be a machloikas about this, that will lead to a point that you would have been chayiv a shvua l'mashal moedim mixas. The guy admitted, I did not put enough seeds. But the guy, let's say, this guy says, you should have put $100 worth of seeds, and you put less $100. The guy says, you're right. I put less $50. That's my mixes. Normally you'll be chayiv shvua, but there's a rule, guys, that ein nishboin ala karkois. So the same doubt whether this is a question about seeds or about land will spill over. Since there is a doubt, you don't take a biblical oath based on a doubt. That means if there's going to be a scenario where there would have been a chiyuv hashvua midoiraisa, it's automatically only going to be downgraded to a rabbinic oath.
Rabbi,
yes.
in these other cases where there's a doubt, he usually says that if one guy chops the money, then
Same thing over here. That same thing over here. Clear, Danny. I would just argue that the Rambam is not always consistent. I know this. I don't know if about here, because the Rambam quotes the words of the Mishnah, and Mishnayos are recordings of many Tanoim. So you're not always going to have exactly the same way things are worded. That's the answer to Danny's question. Like, why does that here? The words that Rambam says is that ein moitzi miyad hanidba. But that also implies that if one party grabbed it, then it flips. Who's the tevei, who's the nitba? But that's his expression. A person rents a keli or an animal by rental, not a rental of land, rental of items, yes or no. Because shaschira is like a sale for one day. So also by rentals, when there's a standard price and there was an over or undercharge, same rules. In other words, if it's less than a shtus, guys, then there's mechila. If there's an avashtus or more, now hold on, I have a simple question. What's the normal din of oino? That the money only has to be returned if the oino was avashtus. The moment it's more than a shtus, what's the din? You have the option of being mevatel the mekach. Here it's not shaykh to be mevatel the mekach because the rent already happened. In other words, I rented it for 3 days. I'm giving it back to you anyways. It's about I paid too much. The only option, there's no bittul mekach, is to get the money returned. So whether it's a sixth or more, then the money has to be returned. And even after a lot of time. And final halacha yutches, Ali says that Rambam, shahakablon, guys, a kablon is a contractor. Just understand that. Contractor is you're paying for the job. A poil is you're paying for the day. Shahakablon yeshloy oina, for example, if a person was being paid to do a job of, for example, weaving a garment, and you made up, you're paying the guy 10 zuz for that, for weaving. Or to sew a garment, sewing is much less involved, for 2 zuz, just no much. Yesh lo yino. V'chol echad mishneim bein kablan bein balabeged chayzer lo'olam kamoicher, with all of the rules, less than a sixth, mechila, a sixth, or more than a sixth. Okay.
You're paying for the baguette?
You're paying for the job, and the job, and by the way, what's huh? Because that's the whole part. That's the whole part. That he's not a poil. You're not paying him for his. You're not paying him for him. You're paying him for the job, and the job is metaltalin. Now, by the way, there's a rule. Like if I paid you $10 to weave the baguette, but remember we learned yesterday. If I have the baguette now, if I live in a city where there are many experts, there are other tagorim, means I had a time to show it to someone and say, see, I bought the yard and I paid the kablan 10 zuz, and the guy says, no, you overpaid. If I knew and I didn't protest, then I'm like, it's all of the dinner we learned in Perek Yud Beis applies over here. Chavra, Gan Eden, beautiful, Atkan, Oina. There's going to be in chapter 14, there's going to be another rule. It's not Oina, but it's a rule based on one detail that we learned in Perek Yud Gimel. One of the things we learned in Perek Yud Gimel, which is about where there isn't Oina, is Hanoise v'Hanoisen be'emunah. Everyone, I'm being honest, how much this costed for me, right? Or the other case was, this is worth 200. I'm selling it for 400, and there's no Aina. Perek Yud 14 is going to tell us there are certain items, which are the items that are called Chaya Nefesh, bread, milach, pitir, the things that you need to live, that the Chachamim don't allow for people to charge whatever they want, even if they know how to circumvent Oina by being noisev and be'emunah. Certain items. Staple items have to have a responsibility, and even in America, I think, or in other cultures where it's free market mamish, there is, I think, or there should be some control on staples. Like today, gas. You have to keep those prices down. There's a chiyuv to do so. Even if there's honesty, everyone knows how much you're profiting. And then we're going to move on in chapter 14 to another type of eino. It's called einos devarim. Einos devarim means don't verbally abuse someone else. Don't give people anguish through your words. It's very interesting that the Torah uses the same words for cheating, purposefully or not, and for verbally abusing. And the Rambam will explain why God does it. Same words called eino. One is called einos mammon. One is called einos devarim. Perek Arba Asar has 18 halachas. Let's get flying. Halacha al. Kvar biyarnu shahanoisi v'noisim be'emunah. As we just explained in our intro, and as we learned in the previous chapter, by saying kach v'kach ani mistaken, he's really telling you his halachically cost and how much he's selling it for. You know how much the profit is. And we already said, there's no kind of I know. Or afilu amar zelo kachti b'selam. Even if the change is huge, it costed me 1, I'm selling it for 10. As long as you know that, then mutar. I want to give a parenthetical statement. It just came to my mind. I think that in America, there's no din of eino because the system here is that you make as much profit as you could. Everyone knows that. But anyways, let's come back over here. Huh?
As much as you could. There is a cap.
There is no cap here because the cap is competition. I want to leave that out. Let's scrap that statement and we have to see into that. Aval, nevertheless, based in chayavim, lifsayk hasha'arim, they have to fix market prices, and they have to actually hire police to enforce it. Why? By certain items, how much is an acceptable amount of profit? Shtus bilvad. And by the way, not less than a shtus. No, it's you could profit a shtus. Now, if you would not be noisev and noisim be'emunah, you would not even be allowed to profit the shtus. Understand that? You have to first take care of the eino issue, and then they allowed you a shtus. But not more than a shtus. You got it? By eino, you can't even hit the shtus. Yeah. That's tricking. Even not on purpose. Stop. Here, the din that we're going to learn in this chapter is that when it comes to staple items, earn a shtus, not more. Profit margin, yeah. Yes. What percent is a 6, Rabbi Chaim? The shmata business of my father, Halavai, 17.
David Amami said it's 16%.
That's why I asked Rabbi Chaim. I go with Rabbi Chaim. Now he's waking up. His brain is turning. When do you have to fix prices? No, that's the words. Articles upon which our lives depend on. What is that? Guys, wine, first thing that Rambam mentions. You got to love it. Oil, flour. Now, where's the meat? I don't know. But at least we got the wine. It's good. What are we excluding? All herbs. Or as Danny would say, herbs. No, herbs. Kagoin. Now, I have in my version, chamon. Now, if in that version, just to know that chamon might be ginger, chamon might be cinnamon. Coming back, I know that in the Chayeno, I was looking, you don't have that word. Koisht, castus, levina, frankincense, chayoytze behem, ein toiskelim shar. Eli yistaker, hamistaker, kol masha yirtze. Guys, kol masha yirtze means by noisev and noisev bemun. Never hefker welt. Halacha yimel. Ein mistaker pamayim bebeitzim. Another klal they gave. You can't have 2 people earning profit off eggs. In other words, if it's the farmer is the one that's going to earn the profit. If I bought it from the farmer and I want to resell it, you know what I got to do? I got to sell it for the price that I bought it. Don't do it because it's considered such a staple and everyone is only allowed a shtus. Now, if you have more than one person, everyone is allowed a shtus. There's also going to be a little bit crazy pricing because I have to earn a shtus and you have to earn a shtus and the other guy and everyone is doing it kedin. So only one person can sell it. Only one person can make profit. And the schar that he limited was a shtus. And b'halakeach mimenu, because you're buying it for you. If you want to resell it, I'm sorry. Sometimes it's worth it. You want to have a one-stop shop. So you have the what's called the lost leader, the losing leader, whatever the expression in English is. Doesn't matter. In other words, if I want to sell eggs because I want to make profit off my basad and I want to make profit off my levina that I can make as much as I want, there's no to hate. But there's shtus only once. Beautiful. Another restriction, guys. This is going to blow your mind. Lasses chayda means if I'm a farmer, that's not called lasses chayda. As a farmer, if I grow it, I can sell it for the shtus. Chayda means that I don't own land. I'm buying from you wheat, you understand? And I'm selling it to the stores. That already is awesome. No, so who is going to sell the staple items? The ones who actually produce it. That's it. They live it. By eggs, you can't even have a guy reselling it. By tfuah, it's different already. You don't have that restriction. But to have a businessman who makes a living by buying and selling produce, awesome. Elazem maybe migornoi. It's like I have a gun. That means I have a field. I have a threshing floor. I sell it. And this guy has a vineyard and he has a gitoi. So you make the wine. You sell the wine. The producers sell it, not middle people.
These were the days where Israeli farmer used to make money.
These were the days. Those were the days, my friend. The goal is for the consumer not to pay too much for chaya nefesh. However, then we're not afraid that prices will go up a lot. Whenever there is abundance of something, so I'm saying that you have to know halachically how this applies nowadays. Whenever there's a big abundance of an item, we're not afraid. We don't have to make all these restrictions because if oil will go through 3 hands, and therefore everyone is going to add the shtus, and the guy's going to have to pay $100. Why would he pay $100 if he can find this easily for 50?
Which is most items these days.
Which is, as I'm saying, in a free market, there's much less restrictions. Halacha, hey, ein oitzlen peiris, another than can you make storage? Ein oitzlen peiris sheyesh memchayin Eretz Yisrael, or v'chein b'chol makom sherubin Yisrael, even chutz la'aretz. Why do people make stores? I'll tell you why people make stores, guys. I bought something, not I grew it. If I grew it, I can make storage. I bought something. I paid $100. Right now, there's so much of it that even if I'll sell it, I'll earn less than the 16%, whatever the limit is. What will I do is I'll store it now. I can store this for 2. Maybe next year there'll be less food, and then I'll be able to charge the shtus. Not let I do that. You can't take something out of circulation. That in itself brings an anguish. Who is not allowed to store if the guy did not grow it? No, don't take things out of circulation. That's something else. If I have land, guys, and it happens to be that wheat this year is so abundant that there's very little profit. Again, I can only earn a shtus. I can't even earn the shtus. If I grew it, I'm allowed to store it. Wait until next year. Mutalas is like Kaboy oitzim. Now, there's a big machlekes what the Rambam means by that. Many people understand that Rambam is saying that even if you grow it, you can't store a lot. A kav means a small amount. You can make your kav into storage. Other people understand that the Rambam is just using a mashal. But no matter how much. And some people say that even if you grow it, only a small amount. The Rambam means dafka, only a kav. Okay. Halacha. There is a time that anyone can store for a max of 3 years. And when is that? That's on the 6th year of the Shemitah. No one will become anxious when there's less of it in the market. Everyone knows that everyone is storing it for the 6th, for the 7th, for the 8th. Erev Shvius, Ushvius, Utzvay Shvius. Another halacha, when the years of famine, afilu kaf charuvim lo yetzor, because it brings a curse on the market prices. We're making exceptions. Even though you grew the charuvim, if it's a drought, everything that you have has to be available. Because when people know that there's stuff, it's a psychological thing. It's like when you serve food on the table, it's amazing. If you put a lot of food out, people eat less. If you put less food out, people eat more. The moment people feel there's a shortage, they go with sugar. Not people, behemoths, but most people are behemoths. Whoever causes prices to increase, or your store Peiros Eretz Yisrael, or like we mentioned, even outside Eretz Yisrael, but in the place Shuruba Yisrael, Hareze Kemalve Beribis. What is Malva Beribis? What's the crime of Malva Beribis? Someone is in dire straits. Whoever needed the loan knows exactly what we're talking about here. Person needs a loan. And like we mentioned in the previous chapter, normally Mechila helps. Why can't you? What's wrong with being Malva Beribis? The guy knows. He knows. You're talking about Noisev and Noisev Be'emunah. I'm borrowing 100 and I agree to give you the percent. And I need the money. It's worth it for me. It doesn't work. Because if someone needs a loan, they are in dire straits. No one is allowed to take advantage from someone when they are in dire straits. And that's exactly what you're doing over here. When it comes to staple foods, everyone is, you need it. And when you cause the prices to go up, you are oppressing everyone. It's almost like tuition. When tuition goes up, there's a trigger. People feel anguished. Halacha zayin. All of the above is beperish or behem chayin nefesh. Abol, in other words, we're speaking about the store, like that Rambam spoke before about how much can you charge more. So, but he says by herbs, if you're noisev and noisev be'emunah, you cannot do ayna. But if you know how to get out of the ayna, whatever you want. Same thing when it comes to spices. I don't know why the Rambam gives other spices here. Kamoin, kumin, pilpulin. Here again, Danny, I think because in the Mishnah, when the Mishnah spoke this halacha, the Tana gave these examples because we had not in this Pedic when it came to that was by herbs. Herbs, chaman, koishtan, lavoina. Here it's tevalim, kamen, upilpulin. Mutzal eser eretz Yisrael. You are allowed to store it. You are allowed to transport it. Mimarkim lamakim. Just like herbs. Avol, but in contrast, halacha ches, in peiros, you may not export peiros from Israel. Sheyesh bahem chayin nefesh. Can you imagine? Kigoin yeinois, shmanim, usalasois. You cannot export it from Eretz Yisrael to Chutz La'aretz. Nebach, there goes all the business. V'loy l'Surya, and even in Israel, v'loy mirashus melachzel, rashus melachacha Eretz Yisrael.
Is it doing drought or bichlal?
I would say this isn't the time where there isn't an abundance. Again, I know that a lot of these halachas, even in Hainah, they are applied differently today because there are different rules. Someone told me, here in the shul, we only buy wine from Eretz Yisrael, Beshita, for many years. And someone heard it, he got very upset. He says, all of the wines that they export, you're not doing a favor to Eretz Yisrael. Actually, the government subsidizes the water, which is a commodity. You're buying, they give the water for a lower than what it costs them. So you're taking water out of Israel. Everyone is looking to find a problem with everything. Anyway, halacha tes. Now comes another big cloud. This is a cloud god. Guys, people in a city, they have the right to establish fixed prices, even if it is for staple foods, which is basar and lechem. This is not coming from the merchants, guys. This is not coming from the soichim. This is coming from the people. And by saying that whoever will break these rules will be punished, and they can establish any punishment they want. There are times, guys, that, by the way, this is even for expense. They can make things expensive. There are many communal needs that have to be met, and they're competing values. Sometimes you have to want for things to be expensive. For communally, not the merchants, not to make money. It's kedai to make meat expensive. People are becoming too fagrot. Chassidish city that says, let's make meat expensive. It doesn't matter the reason. If the city leadership decides on a price, it has to be adhered to. And even the craftspeople can make up. It's another din. We have too many people that are weavers. So the weavers can get together and say, okay, we have 6 weavers in the city. Let's make an agreement. Yom Rishon, you're the weaver. Yom Sheni, you're the weaver. If they made that agreement, that the Baal Umaniyos can make up these deals amongst them, and that's enough. And everyone is bound by it. When you don't have a chacham that understands all of the different needs and who has the bigger picture, so then the Baal Umaniyos themselves can make that decision. Abel, if you're living in a place, you have this chus to have a chacham chashuv. Speak about chasidim. All these takanas, always by us, you needed the Rebbe's bracha for that. Because whenever someone is trying to do one good thing here, maybe it's good for this, but maybe this same thing will be bad for something else. So once we have a Rebbe, none of these takanas have any validity without the approval of the Rebbe. Gewaldig. Ein Tanai shalem oil klum. And the ein yochel ma'ana shal hafsid al mishul lekivel ala Tanai. Elim kain his neimam v'asumi das achacham. How great is it for the people who don't understand why by us it's that important? Everything that my father did was the Rebbe, everything the Rebbe. Buy a machine, the Rebbe. Everything. Because that's the way it is. If you're connected to a chacham, don't. And your decisions are not that good. And more than that. Now, guys, this hifsid is very important. So let me just give you an example. The Bali Umaniyos decided that the Rabbanei Anash here are not chacham. So they made a takana. And they should have involved them. And they didn't. They didn't get the haskama from the Rabbanim. And then, let me go further. What was the hefsid? I went ahead and I broke the deal. They made a deal that busset in the city is going to be sold for X amount of money. I sold it for less. And they punished me. They went ahead and they told me whoever's going to do it will be fined. And someone went into my store and they took the fine. That guy has to pay me back. That's the case. Because I was not bound by the oynish because you didn't involve the chacham. I'm just giving you the case. That's where they have to compensate. Mishalim for what? Mishalim means that they follow through with their oynish because I broke the agreement, but I knew that I'm not bound by the agreement because you guys never involved the chachmei oynish.
Really sounds like kibbutz. Gotta say in the Haredi way. That's what it sounds like.
This is God's Torah and everything else that we think is better. This is the system. Now we're going to the new topic of this chapter. And the Torah uses the same verbiage, so the Rambam puts it in the same chapter. Oinos mammon means cheating. Doesn't mean cheating on purpose. Overcharged, undercharged. Oinos means you are oppressing someone, you are abusing them verbally. As it says, Loisoinu ish es amisoy. And that's a pasuk in Bahar. And the Rambam says that goes to Oinos Devarim Ketzad. Koyabal Shuva. Lo yomer lo izchor ma'asecha harishonim. Dimoya ben Gadim lo yomer lo izchor ma'aseh avosecha. Oh, you get a balul my Torah. Lo yomer lo pesha achal levedos tetrefes yom v'yom Torah. Shirim v'nei agvura. Hoyu chaloim v'yisurim b'yim alav. Or the worst of the worst, Mekaberes Banov, Lo Yomer Lo Kederach She'amru Chaverev Le'iyuv. What did they tell Iyuv? Halo Yirascha Kis Lo Secha. Now, there's two ways of teaching it. They told him that if you would have had Yira Shamayim, then you wouldn't have gone through the suffering. They also told him, Schorna, Mihu Naki Yavid. Can you recall anyone who was innocent that perished? In other words, they were matzdik as hadin for someone else. If God did it to you, that's oinos the one.
And these were his friends?
They meant well. People mean well. And I can't even understand the nuance. If God forbid I have Yisurim, this liner is something that I should tell me. I should tell myself that this was coming to me. Maybe it's not a punishment. Maybe it's a blessing. I don't know. Maybe it's a test. But when I see someone else suffering, you don't have to justify God to them. And most people don't get that. So they meant well. Another type of a nas devarim. If someone is looking for merchandise, don't tell this guy, oh, you're looking for wheat. Go to Yankel. When you know that Yankel doesn't have it. That's called a na'as devarim, because through your words, you're making that guy waste time. You're giving him a runaround. Someone is asking you something that only a chacham can respond. You can't turn to a guy who you know does not know the right answer. No, what do you think? Because that guy feels ashamed. It's like putting a person on the spot many times to speak, zogepis. So you checkmated him because whatever he says, he knows is not so great, and not to say he's ashamed. That's called inos devarim. God should forgive me. I do that a lot. Terrible. What is your opinion about this? Now, I want you to know that sometimes people have to be asked what's their opinion. Forget, some people feel that no one sees them as a chacham. No one wants to care about their opinion, and they feel very good. You have to know every case. I want to hear your opinion. Again, here we have, like we had yesterday, I know I'm using Rabbi Adin Eben Yisrael's Rambam. He writes hamoina or me'oina with the aleph, without an aleph, whatever the ger says. Kol hamoinas chager. Now there's unique prohibition regarding a convert, and not that he's not included in Amisecha. A ger is both a yid and he's a ger. Because if someone afflicts a ger, he's violating all the lav. Kol hamoinas chager. What are the three lav? Shenemer, it says v'ger loy soina. Guys, v'ger loy soina is verbal abuse. Then it says loy sil chatzenu, don't oppress him. That's also a mishpatim. That's money. If I verbally abuse a ger, God forbid, I'm violating don't oppress him in money. Question is why? And I just want to get ahead of myself, because the fact that the Torah uses the words oina'ah, bein b'mamin, bein b'dvarim, why does God use the same word to tell you that if you violate one, you're over all the lav? You're over on all the lav. First of all, where do you have three? The Rambam just counted two. No, the Rambam says, because the pasuk in Bahar that we used until now, when it says Leishoine Ishas Amisoi, what do you think? Amisoi also includes a ger. A ger is a Jew. On top of that, Leishoine Ishas Achiv. Now, Leishoine Ishas Achiv is regarding money, but money, the lav regarding Oinas Mamoin, is going to umbrella under it Oinas Devarim and Ger Leishoine, which is unique about the Ger Oinas Devarim. Also, if you oppressed him financially, you took advantage from him financially, also over b'shloisha. Altoinu ishas achiv, loisoinu ishas amisai, and loisil chatzenu. The Rambam is really crossing over both of the lavim of Yonas Devarim and Yonas Mamin. Whichever one violated, you're violating both of the lavim. The Rambam writes, and why is it that you're over on the lav shalanas mamim, even though you're only verbally abused? Because why did God use the same word? That even though on one hand it's referring to two different things, on the other hand, if you violate any one of the two, you're violating both lavin. And final halacha yutches. I want you to know, says the Rambam, that gedola oinos devarim oinos mammon. Gedola means it's worse, greater in the sin, because money at least can be replaced. Shazu nitna liyishavin. Verbal abuse le nitna liyishavin. Zeh is only b'mamoina of the other person. Zeh begufay. Verbal is begufay. V'harehu oinos oinos devarim. That's why the Torah writes the Yoresim Alekecha, because lefisha hadavar masal aleiv. And in other words, money is you can objectify. I took advantage $1. I know that. How do you measure this? How do you measure their abuse? And maybe you did not intend. Did you? All of this has to do with a leiv. It's all in the Nehana studies. Hadavar hakol davar shu masal aleiv. It says Yoresim Alekecha, because God says, I know that you can do it in a way where you might think no one knows what you're doing. I know what you're doing. When a person is being victimized through verbal abuse, if they call out to God, God will answer them immediately. And that's the meaning. That's why the Rebbe feels, think about it, that if a Yid feels the anguish of Galus and they cry out Ad Masai, maybe that's the pshat, then Al Pi Halacha, Hashem has to answer right away. And a tefillah, Golus is oinos devarim. We're being verbally abused by Golus. Not only financially abused. That's the whole part. No, it's the Golus of other Golusin is that there was bad begat. Dafk in America, where it's good begashmis. Relative. I'm not knocking the people that are suffering. I'm saying, it's good begashmis. So what's the pshat? Your ruchnius is being, your inner, your previous is being afflicted. If you feel the pain, and you call out to God that you need Mashiach, God has to answer right away. Perik Hamish Asa, today's final chapter, is about mekachtos. Guys, mekachtos. How do we define mekachtos? Now you see how related it is to Aina, because indeed, if the oina was more than a shtus, the wrong party could pick up the card mekachtos. But it's a much broader topic. When do we say mekachtos? And therefore, lechatchila, there was never a sale because I was goymer das to buy apples. You sold me oranges. I never bought the oranges. How do we apply this whole din of mekachtos? That we have 13 halachas, beginning with halacha aleph. Anything that's sold with an exact measure or with an exact mishkal weight or with an exact number. Not oina, not shtus, and there was the slightest error. That has to be corrected. There's no mechila there. When we learned in the previous chapters about oina, and as we said, there's mechila, or at least not mekachtos if it's only a shtus, it's not done by the beis din. That's only when it comes to the value. No, it's the dama means that I overpaid, I undercharged, That's called a no. There you have the whole 6, less 6, more. Not when it comes, the mistake is not about the geld. Aval becheshben, always chayzer. For example, you went, you paid a dinner for 100 egos. Now, if the guy gave you 1 egos less, what are you going to argue? That's 1%, guys. Even I know that math. That's less than a shtus. There's no mechila there. If I buying 100, if I discover many years later that I only got 99, you owe me the other. I was never moich. The nimsu meya ve'echad. If I got 101, if I got 99, so the nikna hamekach. That's not mekachtos. But umachzer esatos v'afilu achar kama shana. You see. So first of all, you have to correct it. But there's no mekachtos. Or in the other, I got my 100 egoism. But when I gave you a din that I paid you with pennies, 100 pennies, I ended up giving you 101 pennies or 99 pennies. They made a kinyan attesting to the fact that this deal is final. Doesn't matter. They thought the deal was final. Now we discovered that it was not 100, it was 99. You made a kinyan. The kinyan, many people do the kinyan. Let's make a kinyan that the deal is over. The kinyan was that the deal that we wrote is over. But it was a kinyan tos. Not nekach tos, kinyan tos. Shekinyan batosu. That kinyan. That the deal is over. No, it's any kinyan that's made under mistaken premises. Minimally, the kinyan is undone. Now, halacha gimel which is great because the Rambam is mentioning karkoi eved. Because if you remember, we learned when it comes to dinner oino, it's not shaykh to dinner oino. We're not learning about oino. Doesn't matter what the transaction is about. The nimsa b'mekach mum shelo yoda b'halokeach. If the item has a defect, what do you do now? It's not missing a number. The item is defected, undone. Mekach tos, machziroi. And even after many years, because this is called a mekach tos, a transaction that's done under a erroneous premise is not a transaction. Now, just like we had by Oino'ah, there is mechila, there can be mechila. In other words, if I made a kinyan and I was under the impression that the eved doesn't have a blemish, that we'll see soon. Once I discovered that this thing has a blemish and I still work with the eved, now I cannot undo it. And now you have to have a lot of halachas. What's considered a mum that gives you the right to be mevatel lemekach, and there are certain moments that does not give you the right. The Torah has to tell you. You don't evaluate the diminution of value caused by the blemish. And once you look at values, we already learned the laws. That the value is only diminished less than a sixth. We don't do that. We do that again by money. When it comes to the blemish, it doesn't make a difference. And the mum is only making it worth less, guys. One isser is 1/24. You're talking about a very small percent. If this would have been under the umbrella of Oino'ah, we would say, come on, it's such a little difference. Mechila. We don't say that. I bought a keli unblemished. The keli is blemished. Yeah, I'm giving you back the difference of price.
You define mums in your business.
Yes.
Like the hekdesh, something.
Wait, Shalakeach Oimer, because the Lekeach has the right to say, "B'chefet shalom ani roitzem." But if the Lekeach says, okay, fine, now that it's blemished, I'm moichel, but I want the money. The moichel can tell him, no. You can undo the sale. I'll give you back all the money you gave me. You give me back the article, or accept it the way it is. The moichel can always say that. Good, or take the money back. In other words, here you don't have the option of demanding the difference in money.
Does it?
You do not have the option. You can say bittul hamekach. What's up? The problem is not a money. The problem is that you're claiming I didn't know that this was blemished.
Take it or leave it.
Take it or leave it, which is a good thing also because ain't no davar safe. Can you imagine? The store, the guys will go out of business. At least the merchant gets his chayda back. Sell it again. My father loved selling it again. Loved when they gave it back. Give it back. See, Avram, I get to sell it twice. You don't get paid, doesn't care. You see, I saw it. He felt it's a good thing. He has merchandised. Allah he used to dance. Like there was no threat. Give it back. With pleasure. Sell it again. Now, how do you define a blemish? So it's not so simple. So first of all, there is what we call common business practice. If people in this location consider this to be a mum, which is mum enough to be mavatal the mekach machzirim boy, but the chol she'iskimu olav she'enim mum, there's a certain ways, unspoken rules. How do you say no machzir boy in Pedish? In Pedish, yeah, it has a scratch. That's the way it is. Every time you buy a beged, nothing will be perfect. But if you verbalize, then your words have to be honored. Without, in other words, he didn't make any specific statements. Without specific statements, you know what's included when you buy? You are buying something with the presumption that you're buying something sholem mikolmum, something that's complete. But if and even guys, even if the moicher says, Al menashe ein ato choizer alai b'mum. It's very important. You know what? It's not effective, that statement. Let me say it by heart. You know when the moicher statement is effective? If he tells him what the blemish is. Because we learned this already before today in Perek Yud Gimel, that mechila has to be for something specific. If you don't know what you're being moichel, it doesn't mean anything. Honey, I forgive you no matter what you did. It's not a truthful statement. First hear what she did. Then see if you can be moichel. You have to know what you're being moichel. So if the guy says, I'm selling it to you on the condition that you'll never retract because of any blemish, still the purchaser can retract. If the moicher says, no, I want you to know that this and that blemish, if he specifies the blemish, and the moicher says, listen, I'm selling it to you, take it or leave it, but he gives the blemish, then the lekeach cannot retract. The Rambam gives another option of specifying. Sometimes the moicher doesn't want to give you a laundry list of what the blemishes are, but the moicher says, listen, I want you to agree that even if the sum total devaluation because of the blemishes is going to be worth really $20 less, not more. That's also called a mechila because he knows he's not being moichel more than $20. It's not that good. That is good. As we learned today in Perek Yud Gimel, so if the guy says, I'm selling you the article, Almanas, that there's no way, no, that's not effective. If he says, Almanas, I want you to know that this is worth in the market for 200 and I'm selling it for 400, then there's no way, no, because he's being moichel the extra $200 or whatever amount beyond the shtus. The guy selling a cow, now let's apply this. Now, certain blemishes are discernible. Certain blemishes you only know after you get married, right? After the animal is a biter. You wouldn't know that when you look at it. The animal is lame, that you'll see. Now he specified mumen. Some of them are revealed. Some of them are something that you need to know the animal prior. The animal is the husband. It shouldn't sound bad for the oilam. For me, myself. Now, whatever you said, big goli is not there. It's factually not true. If I enumerated blemishes that the lekeach sees are not there, then he thinks that the other blemishes are also not there. And then he could retract. The Meicher says, I told you about it, because the Meicher is a crooked guy. Sometimes when you make a sale, you want for the buyer to feel like he's getting a deal.
Sometimes.
In other words, so you're minimizing your article for the seller to think, wow, the guy doesn't even know what he has. He thinks this animal has this that doesn't even have that. Let me chop it. When I saw the ones that are revealed are not there, I said to myself, the stam of the other ones are also not there. The Meicher doesn't know what he's doing. Why was he saying that there are mumen? Only it's called kedei lahashbiach dati, to make me feel good about my purchase. Verstehst? Ketzad, for example, parazois iverasi. Now, blind you can see. Chigeres you can see. Lame. Nashchanis, that it's a biter, you can't see. Raftsonis, that it likes all of a sudden to crouch down. You can't see that.
Tomorrow we can. No problem.
No, you can't see it right away. When you're in the market.
Nashchani, of course we can.
No, of course you can't.
Okay.
How can you see?
I'll show you later on.
No. You cannot see it.
Nashchani?
It's moment she'einav going. It's a nature of biting.
Yeah, but in the Gemara they give you signs for how the tail goes under the leg. But you know what? It's about that. It's not about cow.
Very good. The name says Nashchanis Bolvado Rafsonis, and it only has those blemishes that are not discernible to the eye. Mekachtos. Because the guy says, you told me it's blind. It wasn't blind. So I thought to myself, just like it's not blind, it's not a biter. But because you were moichel on those blemishes, and you specified. More than that, even if you mentioned two mumen shebagoli and it only had one, since it already had one, then the Melikeach knew it could have the other ones. And more than that, halacha test. What happens when the guy is selling it? He actually shows only one blemish. You see, this, look at this. And then he verbalizes others. Mum zeh yesh boy. That's marabet's boy. And then he says, umum pleni. By the way, umum pleni means he speaks about another revealed one, and he speaks about a hidden one. But he pointed to one revealed one. You got it? Yakir. That's the case. Even though the other one that he spoke about, one of the goli is not there, even though we didn't show, no, the point is, the moment anything of what you mentioned is there, the lekeach knows that he has to open up the possibility that some of the other blemishes at least are there, and he was transparent. That she's a chigera, she limps. Gidemisi, he only has one hand. Okay, these are things that you can see. She's blind, you can see. But then he says she's a shaita, that you can't see. Or she's epileptic, you can't see that. You don't know that. None of the revealed ones she had, but it turns out that yes, she's epileptic. It's a mekachtos. You said she's epileptic, but everything that you said that's bagoloi was not there. And therefore, like the Rambam says before, the lekeach thinks it was only lahashbiach dati. Now comes a bigger chiddush. Halacha yudal. Mikan on the oimer, based on the above, says the Rambam chiddush. He sells something for 100. Really, it's only worth one. Now, what did we learn today? We learned in Perek Yud Gimel that's not hanoise v'hanoisen bemun. He's saying that this in the market is only worth one. I'm selling it for 100. There's no way. No. 1 second. If this in the market, everyone knows is not worth one. This in the market is worth a lot more than one. Once we are accepting the previous halacha, that when the lekeach hears the moicher say something that's not true, then he discounts everything he's saying. So here also it's discounted. That's not called you are honest how much your profit is. Yesh olav no, because I looked at this, guys. This is not worth. Nowhere in the world can you buy it for a zuz. This is worth a lot more than the zuz. And therefore, if you actually charged a shtus more in the value, then you have to be machzir the shtus. And if you charge more than the shtus, it's mekach tos if the guy wants. Mekach bot. In other words, you have to give the honest, unfair gain. You understand, Yakir? Now, it happens to be that if, by the way, if you bought it for a zuz, that's something else. If you're honest, say, guys, I know that I bought it for a steal. I bought it for a zuz. Now I'm selling it for 100. Then it's different. Because it could be that I bought a lot in China and I got a mitzvah. But if I say that this is worth a zuz when it's not worth a zuz, everything else that I said is out of the window. Now, Kodev law doesn't have to be exact because it has, even if I made a mistake, it has to be within the realm of possible. Should they say you have to know what you're being. Let's go into other movement. There's two versions, either mipnei mumen or mipnei hanoi. When a person buys an eved or a shivcha, Chazal tell us, eved or a shivcha are here to do work. Some types of blemishes that we learn b'negei a marriage will not be relevant over here. Things that will justify even after marriage. One of the things that say justify get, God forbid, is that a person has very bad breath before there was Listerine. I can't live with this. That's only because the relationship also will be that of intimacy. Eved or shivcha are never there for that. So any blemish that has to do with their beauty, but it won't affect their ability to work, it's not called a blemish. And these blemishes are called simplain. Simplain are blemishes that if you exclude intimacy, it's a non-issue. If this blemish is, you can see it, they saw it. What are they claiming? They know it. If it's not seen, it gives a shuma. A person has a bad mole. So if the mole is on the face, you saw it when you bought the eved. If the mole is where the body is normally covered, has nothing to do with the eved or the shivcha, you're not losing anything. Or if there's a dog bite, or if there's bad breath of the mouth, or if there's bad breath of the nose, saying this is unlike laws in marriage. Now, halacha you'd give all. However, even by avodim, there is a limit. There are certain blemishes that, you know what, if you want to have a waiter, you would not have this eved be a waiter. For example, if he has shchinda, speaking about very not seemly boils over their body, or if they have an illness that makes them very weak, or if they're epileptic, that's a good example. Because if you have an eved that's an epileptic, certain jobs you cannot give to him, because he might get a fit, and during the fit, whatever needs to get done will not get done. Or if he's mishwama, he's mishuga, he's insane. Mishwama is insane, huh? Yeah, insane, but in temporary insanity, because anything that you would have known, it has to be some sort of mental disorder that sometimes the guy is perfectly functional. Sometimes he's not. Dvarim ha means that people are repelled from that. Not repelled for tashma shamita. They're repelled. And therefore, because he cannot serve food. So there is a restriction, there's a limit, and you can argue, I wanted to buy someone who's going to be able to also be a server when it comes to food. Another detail with a limit. If he's an armed robber. That's a mum. Why is it a mum? Because if he's an armed robber, sooner or later, the government is going to chop him. And the government is going to chop him, they're going to hang him, they're going to electrify him, electrocute him. And then you're going to lose your evidence. Or even not if he's a list in Zoin. If he's a nimsa muchtav lamalchus. Muchtav lamalchus means that some people have been conscripted in the service of the government. You didn't know about it. Let's say there's a person that's such a good accountant that the government says, oh, you're working for us a month a year. If you didn't know about it, in other words, he was already meshubed l'malchus. Harei zamum. However, there are certain other blemishes of character that by avodim is not considered the mum. You know why? Because you knew that they already had it, which is aganif. List of mezuyim is terrible. List of mezuyim is someone that will be an armed robber, will be put to death by the government. Aganif, or he's a choytav, he's called a pickpocketer, or he's a goynef nefashis, he's a kidnapper, or a guy who's bareach tamid, he's constantly trying to run away, or zoyel v'soyve, he is a glutton. You can't say any yachal hasid. Shekolo avoda mecheskas sheyesh behem kol deis harois elam kein peinish. When it comes to shidduchim, people say later, had I known that my husband is this. All husbands are like this. There's a certain amount of, that's the way of the world, and Chazal have to determine exactly when and where, and if it's beyond the norm, it's makachtos, and if it's within the norm, unless you're mafadish prior, I'm only doing this al menas X, Y, and Z, then you can't claim makachtos. Gewaltig.